Deputy Ross.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for coming in, Mr. Murphy. First of all, could you just tell us a bit about yourself? I noticed in the annual report and the documents we have, we've got quite a lot about what you do, as in your statement. Could you just tell us where you came from?
Well, I'm a chartered civil engineer. I was previously Chief Executive of the Grange Gorman Development Agency, and prior to that I worked for 8 years in the National Roads Authority, and I established the Public-Private Partnership Programme and the National Tolling Programme, and prior to that I was the Project Manager in Dublin Port Tunnel with Dublin City Council. So that takes me back about 15 years.
Okay, and that's all in the public service, is it?
That was in the public service. I worked for 2 years in Africa with Concern as a volunteer engineer.
Okay, that's fine. What do you get paid?
I get paid a salary of €179,000. That's a non-personal pension contribution. So if you, so the 5% pension contribution doesn't apply. If it was a pension contribution, salary would be €189,000.
All right. You also got a board fee in the 2011.
Yes, that's terminated.
That's now terminated.
Yes.
And nobody who's an executive gets a board fee anymore?
No.
Okay, that's fine. The next thing I'd like to ask you, how big is your board?
There are 12 persons in total on the board.
Okay. Could you tell me something about them?
Well, there are 3 ex officio appointments. There's myself as Chief Executive to the Dublin City Manager, and then a senior management post within the authority was a designated position, and Hugh Cregan is on the board. There's the chairperson, John Fitzgerald, who's appointed by the Minister, and then the other positions were appointed by the Minister. So there were 9 positions appointed by the Minister. At the time, I'm aware, when I was the Chief Executive designate and the chairperson was designated, there was a call for public interest at the time by the Minister for Transport and people who might wish to serve on the board, and then appointments are made thereafter.
And people applied publicly for the board positions? Yes. They did. When I look through the annual report, we get the names of the board members and nothing else about them at all. Why is that?
Well, because I think the annual report reflects the activities of the organisation. The board members, 9 of which were appointed by the Minister, and that was the Minister's determination. The 3 are ex officio appointments. So,
but it's good practice, certainly in all PLCs, to give a CV of the board members. They're paid 11,000 a year, 12,000 a year. Why didn't we get information on who they are?
Well, we just didn't include it in the annual report. I mean, there's no.
Why not?
We just didn't feel that it was necessary to include that information. The activities of the board is reported in the annual report, the attendance at meetings, etc., the costs, the expenses, the key items.
Because I rang, or my office rang your office to try and find that information, and nobody in the NTA seems to have any information about the board members. They don't know anything about them.
Well,
it's an extraordinary situation, isn't it?
Well, I think if I put it this way, that I've worked closely with board members for the last 3 years, so I wasn't involved in the appointment. I don't know the parameters for their appointment. What I do know is from their work at the board level, I have a planning law expert who's a lecturer in university. I have a transport planner, qualified transport planner.
Tell me who they are.
Dr. Berna Grist, she lectures in UCD in planning law. I have Linda Saunders, who's a transport planner and worked in transport for London, and previously worked in Dublin Transportation Office, and I'm aware that she applied as one of the public interest members to the Minister. I have Frank King, who worked in bus operations for many years in the state, and have 2 people who are involved in tourism and related activities. Margaret O'Shaughnessy, who is Chief Executive of the Foynes Historical Museum, and Jim Deegan, who runs his own company, Rail Tours. Valerie O'Reilly runs her own marketing communications company, and let me see, Dahi Alcorn has been a public representative, and Damien Flynn has worked in banking, is retired. Damien Nusher, sorry, worked in banking, is retired.
Okay, why do you not give biographies of these people?
There's no particular reason that we don't give biographies. We just didn't feel it was necessary to include in the annual report.
For instance, David Alcorn is a Fianna Fáil councillor.
A public representative, yes.
Yeah, he's a Fianna Fáil councillor. Is that a suitable qualification for your board?
I'm not going to comment on that question.
Okay. Valerie O'Reilly, who you said is a public relations person, she was nominated by Michael Lowry, isn't that correct?
I'm not aware of the background to their
all
nomination.
over the press. If you don't read the newspaper about your own organisation, it's unusual, isn't it?
I'm not aware of the process of a nomination. It was a decision by the minister.
Yeah, but that's well known fact. Margaret O'Shaughnessy, who mentioned, went to a Fianna Fáil convention. That didn't appear anywhere. Damien Usher canvassed for the last minister, Noel Dempsey. Do you ever look around the board and say maybe these people aren't chosen purely on their expertise in transport?
I think, Deputy, I've answered the question that 9 appointments are made by the Minister. They're not within my remit. I wasn't involved in the appointments. I work closely with the board. You have their attendance figures, you have their expenses, and you have their payments. And I've given the broad range of expertise that is brought to the table of the board of the authority.
But you sit on the board with them. You work with them.
That's correct.
And they're paid out of public funds. Do you find this is a satisfactory way of selection, that ministers appoint people who obviously have political connections first and expertise of a limited value? Would it be better for the board if public money was spent on people who quite obviously are not chosen for their political colour?
That's the decision for governments at the time, how they think. I have no comment on it.
You've no comment? Bad or good, bad or
I
indifferent?
have no comment on that.
Okay.